wasn't that in a lot of movies?
Yeah.
Like back in the 90s of like
Yes.
Texas City?
Yes. It gave me, was it Jurassic Park 2 vibes?
Yeah.
There's also other movies. Yeah, it's very, it's very 90s.
Hello. Please come in. There's some fresh cookies in the cookie jar. There's a pitcher of Kool-Aid on the counter. Have a seat. We'll put a movie on for you. This is Movies at Grandma's House, where we look at the movies from the past to see if they're still good today by our modern eyes and has Grandma's approval. And I'm your host, Isaac. Oh, this is the 5th time this year. And who's joining me to consider the 90s film, Mighty Joe Young?
This is Seth. Okay, everybody, Elvis is in the building.
It's wonderful to see you, Seth. How are you feeling?
I'm doing really good. I don't know why, but I'm doing really good. Enjoying myself.
That is great to hear. Yes, I'm feeling great with you. This has been a time where we can consider a 90s film. I think a lot of people remember this one, but we'll get into it, of the memories we have with this. I think there's lots that we could talk about when it comes to this film. But before we jump into it, just a reminder, if you like visiting Grandma's house and you want to show her some love, smash that like, smash that subscribe, and you'll be all up to date with Movies at Grandma's House. And again, this is your proper spoiler. We do talk specifics when it comes to our reviews. So if you've not seen this movie, please stop what you're doing. Go watch this movie. Come on back, because we're going to have a great time with a little movie called Mighty Joe Young. So this film was released back on December 25th, 1998. It had a budget of $90 million. And the box office, well, it was 50.6. So this was actually a failure at the box office. Just kind of looking around, you can watch this for free streaming on Disney Plus currently as of this recording. Reviews, just kind of glance in. IMDb has a 5.7 and Rotten Tomatoes has a 54%. So it's just a few stats to look at when it comes to the film. But this was released all the way back in 1998. So I'm interested. What are some first memories that you have with this film?
Well, I remember really enjoying this in the past. I've seen it a couple times way back when. So, yeah, I was familiar with it, but not like recently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I remember this being kind of advertised heavy. Going back to the budget was $90 million, and the special effects are good too, but I'm wondering if a lot of that is in the advertising. I just recall a lot of that ads, just anywhere you look, there it seemed like there was some kind of preview or tease for this film. But I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about this movie. Like, this is one of those forgotten 90s. Oh yeah, I do remember that after being mentioned, but it's not one that I think of first when I think of the 90s, if that makes sense. But with that being said, what was your expectations upon going back on the rewatch?
Just to hope that it hasn't endured after all these years, because it's been a while.
Right there with you. I can remember the first time I saw it, enjoying it, but I was thinking, I hope I enjoy it again. Going back to, I just kind of forgot about this one, but I was hoping that I'd be surprised, maybe delighted to revisit this one. Well, before we get into our plot rewind, let's pause to hear a word from our sponsors. Love movies as much as we do? Bring the experience of the big screen to your walls with movieposters.com. Whether you're into classics, blockbusters, or indie gems, they've got something for every film fanatic. As a listener of our podcast, you can get 15% off your order now. Just use code Grandma's House 15 at checkout. Head to movieposters.com and let's build your ultimate collection today. So with that, let's take the VHS out of the cover, let's put it in the VCR, and press play.
The story centers on Mighty Joe Young, a giant gorilla who was raised by Jill Young, the daughter of a doctor. When Joe is taken into captivity, the story changes direction, with some dark twists and turns as an exciting adventure, but is it suitable for all ages? Grab your Kool-Aid and find a blanket, sit back, and watch the remake of At Grandma's.
All right. So nice summary there. I mean, this is a pretty interesting film, I think. It's got these, like, I don't want to say King Kong vibes, but it's very much like there's this creature that can be dangerous vibes. That was kind of what stuck out to me, but I'm interested. What are some first impressions as you're watching this film?
It was a little bit cheesier than I remembered, but it was endearing in its charm. So that's kind of what I took away on the first impressions.
Gotcha. It was on the cheesy side, I'll admit. I'm with you on that. It had some moments where it was a little bit, it had that 90s cheesy going on, but I think it had a good vibe about it. This is a interesting concept of a gorilla that's larger than life. It's kind of this fictional character because it's a gorilla, but it's much bigger, and it's tamed by, as you mentioned, her name is Jill. Charlize Theron plays her, and I love to see Bill Paxton. That's just a side note. I just really like stuff that he's in. Kind of jumping into the character aspect, but that's kind of my impressions too. It's just like you said, the cheesiness a little bit is there, but I think it's something you can enjoy, especially, revisiting a 90s movie. If you want to kind of see what the 90s was like, I kind of got that feeling. Did you get that feeling?
Yeah, at first, I didn't know what to think about the movie. We'll get into more of the details later, but it went up and down where it was like very dramatic and very light. And I didn't remember that when I watched it, and it was very 90s. It was, especially certain parts of the film, you just can't help but feel that nostalgia of the 90s.
I agree, because it's just, I don't know, this is one of those movies like, oh, okay, this is like the late 90s. So the movies that we've covered was, I think, very much the early 90s, and if you lived through it, you could tell there was kind of this morphing of the decade. And this was very like late 90s. There's just something about it. I can't tell you. It's just about this big gorilla that is tamed by, like I was saying, Jill, but they want someone to be a poacher on it. And so some people want to protect it. So it's just the story talking about, what is going to happen. Is this gorilla called Joe going to be rescued? Is he going to be in a safe place, or is he going to be in danger? That's kind of the conflict, kind of the story. And that's very straightforward, I think, but it does have a unique, I don't know. Like I said, I kind of forgot about it, but then I remembered about it. Like, oh yeah, because it's a much bigger gorilla. So it is an interesting concept, I thought. But going back to the characters, what'd you think of the casting, the characters, and so on?
Well, Bill Paxton was a treasure. Charlize Theron is wonderful. The animatronics and special effects were great, especially for 1998, in my opinion. Excuse me. It's always a pleasure to see Bill Paxton. What a wonderful actor he was, and the Charlize Theron is just, no matter what role she's in, it's believable. So I liked her being, like, as you said, she was taming Joe. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a tragedy to it because her mom is killed and Joe's, family, it's like he's the only one left. So that's why these poachers are after him. But you kind of have that connection there. That's why he's tamed, is she's gone through a similar experience. And that's where you're going back to, like you said, it kind of has that serious tone, the drama and everything involved, but then it can kind of go the cheesy route, I guess. I don't know. It's really hard to put my finger on it, but that's exactly what you were saying. It really hits the nail on the head, so to say, if that's the best way to put it. But yeah, there were some darker tones too. I think that's what I'm also swaying towards. And you kind of made mention of it on the plot. What did you think about the darker parts of it?
Well, for you've touched it already, but my notes on the plot, lots of twists, some dark scenes that were tragic, like you said, but overall a cute movie for most ages. So it kind of goes up and down, and you kind of like, you see, hard to watch scenes, and then you see really light-hearted and fun-loving scenes, and it takes you on a roller. I hate to say it all the time. It takes you on a roller coaster. It really does.
It does though, because the plot is he's in the wild. Bill Paxton's character, he's the guy that's about protecting Joe, and so she is reluctant, but then agrees. Jill, who's kind of the caretaker for Joe, agrees to go to this like preserve where there's people that take care of him. But then the poacher, that's what I thought was kind of dark. I don't remember that, of getting his finger bit off. I was like, oh wow, okay, it kind of cuts away at everything, but it's just still, I don't remember it. So it was probably shocking as much as the first time, since I don't recall. But he catches wind, so now he wants to get back at this gorilla for biting his finger off, and he plays like he can take it to a safer spot because Joe he recognizes him, and so on and so forth. So it's a back and forth. Yeah, it is a roller coaster, actually. If you get down to it, if you really break down each part, it's like, it does take you on, okay, they're over here, now they're over here. And then I think maybe what is calling the 90s is the whole end sequence where Joe gets loose because they're trying to transport him and then realize this is the poacher, so on and so forth. But wasn't that in a lot of movies?
Yeah.
Like back in the 90s of like attacking the city?
Yes. It gave me, was it Jurassic Park 2 vibes?
Yeah.
There's also other movies. Yeah, it's very, it's very 90s.
I think
not
that's
in a
what
bad
was calling
way. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying it's definitely dated in that way.
Right. It's not bashing it. I think it's just, for the longest time, I think New York was the city that was under attack, but this was LA, I believe, and you just brought that up. The second Jurassic Park, The Lost World, I believe that was also LA, where the T-Rex gets loose. So you kind of have the, lizard dinosaur attack on that spectrum, and then you have almost your King Kong with Mighty Joe Young. And it feels like there was other movies that had that too, where it was LA being attacked and everything. So maybe that's what's screaming 90s to me, is I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this before of some creature attacking LA. But I did get a kick out of like the humor with Joe. Like you said, the animatronic I think is still good today. It really held up well. That kind of shows how CGI I think doesn't age as well. I think when you're more practical, that's the way to go for the long term. But that scene when he's kind of, in a panic and he's like attacking the city, so to say, he sits down on the car because the alarm keeps going off. I thought that was really funny. and just whenever he's like causing people in a panic, I thought that was pretty fun. Did you like those kind of scenes or anything like that stick out to you?
There's something in the fun facts about when he's loose. But I was really shocked that like the ending was as dramatic as the beginning was, really.
Yeah.
And I did not expect that. I haven't seen it in almost, or maybe over 20 years. I don't know. So it had been a while. I didn't remember, the whole thing with the beginning, the intro. So I was really taken aback, by that. So.
Yeah. Very, very dark. The end. I don't remember that either. There's a lot of stuff I didn't remember. And I was watching this with my kids and they seemed to enjoy it, but that was one that definitely got a little bit of a quiet moment. I mean, the guy gets thrown onto wires and gets electrocuted, and it's just kind of, it felt like it was for an eternity. Did you feel that way too? Like when
a little bit. A little bit.
Ee. A little drawn out there. So I don't know. It wasn't terrible. I've definitely seen ones pushing the envelope a little bit more, but as evil as that guy is, I kind of felt for him a little bit. I mean, it did not look pleasant. So yeah, but I'm interested to hear. You're talking about fun facts. What kind of fun facts do you have?
So for the climax, the production built a full-size, fully operational Ferris wheel that, according to Underwood, fell over on cue in the first one take.
Wow. That's impressive. So it fell over.
And
that was
a
all
fully
practical.
operational Ferris wheel.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. So also 6 writers were brought in to do rewrites.
6.
So I read a little bit about like their rewriting process. Apparently there's a lot of things that people were complaining about, and they were like, let's fix that, let's fix this. And they brought in 6 writers to rewrite. It doesn't feel overwritten, does it?
No.
I didn't feel that way at all.
That is odd. Yeah, I would not have thought that, because I thought this was a pretty even story. I mean, we talked about, it's a roller coaster, but every story has to have some kind of conflict, and this was pretty straightforward to be 6 rewrites.
Yeah.
I'm kind of intrigued, like, okay, what were the other 5 versions of the
Yeah,
of
I think if I read it correctly, I think there was one that was a really, really dramatic storyline that was too intense for children. And if this isn't already, in your opinion, you know what I mean? So we'll see. You could do research and find out for yourself, I guess.
That might be something, maybe one time I'll just get interested and look it up. But that's interesting. I would not have guessed that as a fun fact or trivia. If you were going to say how many times did it get rewritten, maybe twice, but 6 times. Wow. I didn't know that.
The beginning of the film is supposed to take place in the Pagani Mountains in Africa. However, the first portion of the film is filmed in Hawaii.
Okay. I can kind of see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But hey, who doesn't want to? I think that could have been the producers like, yeah, we need to film in Hawaii. And then it's like their little giveaway.
And then lastly, they claim that Joe is 12 to 15 feet tall. However, to scale, he would have been 20 to 30 feet tall and weighing much more than 2,000 pounds. Some estimate his one leg would have weighed over 2,000 pounds.
Wow. I was going to say, that doesn't seem right. He was way up there. So
there's some scenes that just, it's kind of ridiculous, like how big he was.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. That's what's kind of cool about it. This is kind of trying to take like we were talking about, the dramatic scenes, but it's also, that's the kind of, put it out of your mind. This is a fictional type of gorilla, so to say. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was awesome, the thought of having this big gorilla. So I really enjoyed it. This was kind of a nice callback again to like the 90s films. I guess that's the best way to put it. But yeah, anything else or any other points to bring out?
A couple things. The animatronics, most of the scenes that you see Joe is animatronics. That is amazing because he looks so real, and especially for 98. I mean, I can see where they spent the money. That's obvious. But another thing I really liked, and I would kick myself for not saying this, was my favorite quote of the movie was, "You have to get bitten by a Mohiki spider. You'll get a fever and delusions. You'll start saying things." And they repeat it again later, which is even cuter.
I like that too. That was a good quote. And yeah, but I really, another thing, going back to Bill Paxton, it's sad that he passed away so young, because he wasn't that old when he passed away. But that's what I kept thinking when I was watching this. Like, because I think he's a really good actor. He's not one of these showy kind of actors, but I think of all the movies I've seen him in, I'm just like, he was really good. Like, he really made a difference in the roles he played. So if anything, it was just kind of a nice stroll down memory lane to see him again too. It's always a pleasant experience to see him.
I 100% agree.
So, okay. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the reviews we're seeing out there. Before we get to ours, though, Seth likes to take a look and see what kind of feedback is out on the net. So, Seth, what did you find?
So the first review that I found was the little songbird said, Joe and the effects steal the show, 7 out of 10.
Okay, that's a good one. And that's another common offender, as we call or we recognize. So good job. I like that.
If you like that, you'll like this one.
Okay.
Smells _ cheese says, too dark and depressing for kids, like for a kids movie, 3 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Which with what he said, I agree with, because it's not for all ages, in my opinion. I'm just giving you a warning.
Yeah. Yeah, we touched on it, and we can touch on it a little bit more as we do our review, maybe, if we need to call the specifics and everything. But I agree with that. Not a bad take on it at all.
And then Movie Guy -21 said, incredible. Mighty Joe Young is a special effects wonder, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, the special effects are great. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we brought that out enough. Like, it really does hold up. I think it has a natural thing about it. It doesn't feel too fake. Maybe a few times, but again, it's going to happen. It's from the 90s, but I never got taken out of the element. So I agree with that. And just, if you're going to give this movie some high praise, that's where I think it really shines, is the special effects. And they knew it. You could tell this is what we're marketing this movie, is look how cool this big gorilla looks, thrashing and hitting things around and destroying cars and all that stuff. So I mean, that should pique the public's interest, I would think. But unfortunately, it didn't for the box office numbers. Well, let's get down to it, Seth. I'm very interested to hear your take. So I have to ask you, like we always do, but for the film, Mighty Joe Young, how are you going to rate it? Are you going to take it home? Are you going to leave it at grandma's? Are you going to hide it in the attic?
Well, I hadn't seen this in over 20 years. I was shocked by the intro, but it was somehow pulled off that they were able to have an adorable feeling to what could have been a terrifying movie. So I have to say I went back and forth a bit, because I strongly feel that this movie isn't for all little ones, but be warned. That being said, overall, it's a good movie. I'm going to leave this one at grandma's, hoping to watch it again.
Right. I was kind of back and forth as well, and I hate to say it, like, towards the attic a little bit, just for that reason. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie if I were, but I will leave this at grandma's as well. I don't mind revisiting this again. That's where I kind of went back to. Like, I don't mind. It's probably not going to be the first one I reach for, to be honest. I don't think it's one of those like super memorable movies. I hate to sound on the negative. I guess it was just more on the forgetful side. I can see why I kind of forgot about it. There wasn't like a lot to remember about it. We talked about the practical effects. That's very memorable. The acting's great. Again, Bill Paxton, we can't say bad things about them. But it's kind of one of those, I'm content seeing it and not seeing it for a while, I guess is the best way to put it. I would not be upset watching it again, but I guess this is one that was more on the lower side. To what you're saying as well, there's some intense moments in here. It's not like it's very extravagant. There's not like really explicit, really bad stuff. It's just kind of takes you by surprise. You weren't expecting that. The one thing we didn't really touch on, we talked about the guy gets like his finger bit off. He gets electrocuted at the end, but there's a lot of psychological stuff in this. They're tormenting this gorilla, and it's very like awkward. It's like, oh, this is just bad. Like, this poor animal, as much as it's fictional, it's still like a gorilla. It's an animal. So yeah, it's one of those you're going to maybe have to have a little caution with, and it shouldn't factor into, is this a good movie or not? But yeah, I'm fine with leaving it at grandma's and, not knocking it, but I wouldn't say it's one of my like favorites or anything. It was just an okay movie. That's the best way I can put it. Well, that's our reviews, but we need to find out, what is grandma's review. So, for Granny's family-friendly rating, Seth, how is Grandma going to rate this film?
Granny gives it a C+, and I will explain why. There's a lot of scenes in this movie that are surprisingly intense. It's drama that shouldn't be there necessarily, if you ask me, but it does make for a good storyline. So I can't, knock the story, but that's, Granny gives it a C+.
Yep. Grandma might not have liked the, not just the finger getting bit off or the electrocuting, but kind of going back to my review of, I think there's a lot of just minor stuff. Maybe you at a glance wouldn't notice it, but when you really are watching this movie, it's like, this is actually pretty intense. I mean, they're rattling Joe with these keys, and it reminded him of his family getting killed, his mother. So that's pretty traumatic. Like you're putting this animal through a traumatic experience. And kind of going back to, I guess, another negative just to throw in there real quick. I think Grandma doesn't like how long that plays out. It's not like a quick and then it moves on. I think that's what makes it so intense, is it really dwells on it. And that is a part of the story. That's what it's trying to tell. But for the sake of, is this a family friendly? That's just how Grandma felt about it. In no way does it make it a terrible movie, but just be forewarned. This gets that rating from Grandma. Well, there you have it, folks. There's our ratings for Mighty Joe Young. So another movie is in the books. But before we wrap things up, Seth, why don't you tell the good people where they can find us and where they can connect with us?
You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You can email us at movies@grandmashouse@gmail.com. And we are on Patreon, so check us out, become a member, and that way you're up to date. And go to movieposters.com and type in Grandma's House 15 at checkout for 15% off.
There you go. Be sure to check all that out. And we have also a newsletter. Yes, we have a newsletter that we're looking to do weekly. So if you want to be up to date on all things movies at Grandma's House, make sure that you register and you subscribe. The link is in the description. So go there and get signed up, because what's really awesome about it as well, if you're on our newsletter, you're going to be signed up for all of our contests, our giveaways going forward. We just had $25 credit to movieposters.com, and we had the Paddington Funko Pops. We got all kinds of goodies we're going to be giving away. The best way to be up to date is make sure you're on our email list for the newsletter. That will tell you all you need to know, all the details. There's also going to be some fun perks. We don't want to spoil anything just yet, so just stay tuned. But we're going to have some fun things, some deals, coupons for movies. If we're going to be scouring and getting that information for you, because we enjoy movies. We want to be able to share that with you so you're up to date on all the news and updates that you need. So keep that in mind. Well, that is our time at Grandma's for now, but don't worry, we will be back soon. So in the meantime, remember to be kind and rewind. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.